Page 211. 1, 2, 3. R is the month when the wave returns to the sea, and at the end of the year to its watery beginning. A wave of the sea in Irish and Welsh poetry is a sea stag, so that the year begins and ends with the white roebuck. In Irish legends, such gods of the year as Cuchulainn and Fionn fight the waves with sword and spear. The corresponding text in the Romance of Taliesin is scattered rather than garbled. B. I have been a fierce bull and a yellow buck. L. I have been a boat on the sea. N. I fled vehemently on the foam of water. F. I have been a drop in the air. S. I journeyed as an eagle. H. God made me of blossom. D. I have been a tree stump and a shovel. T. I fled as a spearhead of woe to such as wish for woe. C. I have been a blue salmon. M. I have been a spotted snake on a hill. G. I fled as a bristly boar seen in a ravine. And G. I have been a wave breaking on the beach. R. On a boundless sea, I was set adrift. The clue to the arrangement of this alphabet is found in Amergin's reference to the dolmen. It is an alphabet that best explains itself when built up as a dolmen of consonants with a threshold of vowels. Dolmens are closely connected with the calendar in the legend of the flight of grain and Dermund from Finn MacCool. The flight lasted for a year and a day, and the lovers bedded together beside a fresh dolmen every night. Numerous beds of Darmund and grain are shown in Cork, Kerry, Limerick, Tipperary, and the West, each of them marked by a dolmen. So this alphabet dolmen will also serve as a calendar, with one post for spring, the other for autumn, the lentil for summer, the threshold for New Year's Day. Thus, picture at once, one sees the reference to S as a hawk or griffin on the cliff, and to M as the hill of poetry or inspiration. A hill rooted in the death letters R and I are surmounted by the sea of wisdom. So the text of the first part of Amergin's song may be expanded as follows. God speaks and says, I am the stag of 7 tines over the flooded world. Wait. I am the stag of 7 tines. Over the flooded world I am borne by the wind. I descend in tears like dew, I lie glittering, I fly aloft like a griffin to my nest on the cliff, I bloom among the loveliest flowers, I am both the oak and the lightning that blasts it. I embolden the spearmen, I teach the counselors their wisdom, I inspire the poets, I rove the hills like a ravening boar, I roar like the winter sea, I return again like the receding wave. Who but I can unfold the secrets of the unhewn dolmen? For if the poem really consists of 2 stanzas, each of 2 triads ending with a single authoritative statement, when the first, who but I, which does not match the other 5, is the conclusion of the second stanza and is uttered by the New Year god. This child is represented by the sacred threshold of the dolmen, the central triad of vowels, namely O, U, E, but one must read O, U, E backwards, the way of the sun, to make sense of it. It is the sacred name of Dionysius, E-U-O, which in English is usually written E-V-O-E. O-V. Evovi. Evo. It is clear that God is celestial Hercules again, and that the child poet Taliesin is a more appropriate person to utter the song than Amergin, the leader of the Milesians, unless Amergin is speaking as a mouthpiece of Hercules. There is a mystery connected with the line, I am a shining tear of the sun, because Diargreen, tear of the sun, is the name of Naima of the golden hair, the lovely goddess mentioned in the myth of Lager Mac Crimthane. Celestial Hercules, when he passes into the month F, the month of bronze alder, becomes a maiden. This recalls the stories of such sun heroes as Achilles, Hercules, and Dionysius, who lived for a time disguised as girls in the women's quarters of a palace and plied the distaff. What? And plied the distaff. It also explains the I have been a maiden in a series of corresponding with the immersion cycle ascribed to Empedocles, the 5th century BC mystical philosopher. The sense is that the sun is still under female tutelage for a half of this month. Cretan boys not yet old enough to bear arms were called skotoi, members of the women's quarters. Then, like Achilles, he is given arms and flies off royalty like a griffin or hawk to its nest. But why a dolmen? A dolmen is a burial chamber, a womb of earth consisting of a capstone supported on 2 or more uprights in which a dead hero is buried in a crouched position like a fetus in the womb awaiting rebirth. In spiral castle passage burial, the entrance to the inner chamber is always narrow and low in representation of the entrance to the womb. But dolmens are used in Melanesia, according to Professor W.H.R. Rivers, as sacred doors through which the totem clan initiate crawls in a ceremony of rebirth if, as seems likely, they were used for the same purpose in ancient Britain. Guion is both recounting the phases of his past existence and announcing the phases of his future existence. There is a regular row of dolmens on Slieve Miss. They stand between 2 battles with Ogham markings, traditionally sacred to the Milesian goddess Skoda, who is said to be buried there. Alternatively, in this account preserved by Borlas in his Dolmens of Ireland, to Bera, a queen who came from Spain. But Bera and Skoda seem to be the same person since the Milesians came from Spain. Bera is otherwise known as the Hag of Bera. Yeah, I'll do it. Sir Thomas Browne generously remarked in his Urn Burial that what song the sirens sang, or what name Achilles assumed when he hid himself among women, though puzzling questions, are not beyond all conjecture. According to Suetonius, the guesses made by various scholars whom the Emperor Tiberius consulted on this point were Circia. Nope. Sir Caesarea, on account of the distaff, Kirkus, that Achilles wielded, Isa, on account of his swiftness, Aso, I dart, Phaera, on account of his red hair. Hyginus gives his vote for Pyrrha. My conjecture is that Achilles called himself Dacrolessa, the tearful one, or better, Drossessa, the dewy one, Drossos being a poetic synonym for tears, according to Apollon I can't say these words today. Apollonius, his original name Ligeron, whaling, was changed to Achilles by his tutor Chiron. This is to suggest that the Achilles cult name came to Thessaly from Liguria. Homer puningly derives Achilles from Achos, distress, but Apollodorus from a knot, and Cheel, lips, a derivation from Sir James Fraser, calls absurd, though lipless is quite a likely name for an oracular hero. Smart man would stop there. The 5 remaining questions correspond with the 5 vows, yet they are not uttered by the fivefold goddess of the white ivy leaf, as one would expect. They must have been substituted for an original text telling of birth, initiation, love, repose, death, and can be assigned to a later bardic period. In fact, they correspond closely with the envoy to the first section of the 10th century Irish Saltaire Naran, which seems to be a Christianized version of a pagan epigram. For each day, 5 items of knowledge are required of every understanding person, from everyone without appearance of boasting who is in holy orders. The day of the solar month, the age of the moon, the state of the sea tide without error, the day of the week, the calendar of the feasts of the perfect saints in just clarity with their variations. For perfect saints, read blessed deities, and no further alteration is needed. Compare this with Armijan's period or colon. Who but myself knows where the sun shall set? Who foretells the ages of the moon? Who brings the cattle from the house of Tethra and segregates them? On whom do the cattle of Tethra smile? Who shapes weapons from hill to hill, wave to wave, letter to letter, point to point? I'll keep going. The first two questions in the Song of Immersion about the day of the solar month and the ages of the moon coincide with the first two items of knowledge in the Psalter. Who knows when the sun shall set means both who knows the length of the hours of daylight at any given day of the year, a problem worked out in exhaustive detail by the author of the Book of Enoch, and who knows on any given day how long the particular solar month in which it occurs will last. The third question is who brings the cattle of Tethra, the heavenly bodies, out of the ocean and puts each in his due place. This assumes a knowledge of the 5 planets Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, which, with the sun and moon, had days of the week allotted to them in Babylonian astronomy and still keep them in all European languages. Thus, it corresponds with the day of the week. The fourth question, as the glossarist explains, amounts to who is lucky in fishing. This corresponds with the state of the sea tide, for a fisherman who does not know what tide to expect will have no fishing luck. The fifth question, read in the light of its gloss, amounts to who orders the calendar from the advancing wave B to the receding wave R, from the next calendar month to the next, from one season of the year to the next. The 3 seasons of spring, summer, and autumn are separated by points or angles of the dolmen, so it corresponds with the calendar of the feasts of the perfect saints. There, now I'll stop.